The old South African flag, the flag of the apartheid government, should be declared hate speech. The foundation says the flag is a symbol of racism and prejudice and is a reminder of how white people treated black people during apartheid. But the organisation Afriforum says that banning displays of the flag in this way would amount to a ban on the flag itself. It says banning the flag would infringe on the constitutional right to freedom of expression. You'll see and hear both sides of this argument now. Ernst Roets from Afriforum will be with you in a few moments. But first, Lozuko Koti is the spokesperson for the Nelson Mandela Foundation. He is here for you now. Lozuko, good evening to you. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, Stephen.
The flag is a collection of colours and symbols. Why is it offensive?
Well, it's a symbol that represents quite a lot. I think we heard today at the Equality Court that messages don't just get expressed by words. The meaning behind those words is the most important thing. And the flags can be a communication tool for those words and those meanings behind those words. So I think that we are beginning to learn that there's quite a lot that is passed on to people, not just by the speeches made in podiums, messages on social media, statements that we make on our interviews, but the representations that go with those messages, like paintings, like drawings, like flags. We know in South Africa recently a story of a painting that represented a certain story about a certain president, and so much furor about it was created because of the message that comes with that, or that is behind that particular painting. So indeed, it's a flag, but what does a flag represent? It represents a lot of ideas. It represents an ideology. It represents a particular thinking. And here in South Africa, in the past that goes beyond 1994, we know of a representation of a brutal system, a government that was particularly hating of black people in this country. And of course that hatred is represented by that flag. And those people who were hated, who were treated badly, who were killed, blood was shed, they see that flag and they are reminded of that. So that's an insult to those people. This is why this action is particularly important.
Okay. There are many things that are offensive. I mean, we're in an election season. There's some political leaders who say offensive things all the time. Just because something's offensive doesn't mean it should be banned?
We did not say it should be banned. What we said is that we need to start thinking thoroughly about the symbols that define us. And one of the things that people have been really driving, my message that has been driven, particularly by Afriforum, is that the Nelson Mandela Foundation wants the apartheid flag to be banned. We did not say that. We said the gratuitous displays of the flag must be deemed as hate speech. And I think that's different, distinctly different from what they're arguing. And more importantly, Stephen, about this is that if you can display this flag in an academic setting, in an artistic setting, or in probably an environment that like a museum where there's context and education about what exactly does this flag represent or where it comes from, so that people learn, there's context and there's background. There's no problem with that. But if you're going to fly it in a rugby game or in a march or in a public space in a park where other people are enjoying some level of social cohesion, you are now trying to fly a flag of hatred in their face.
Okay, I mean the words matter here, and the word gratuitous is the word that really is key to this in a way. What you're really suggesting is that this should not be used politically. Is that the point that you're making? What
we're saying is that it must not tear up our country apart. It must not tear the fibers that bring our nation together. Because when we arrived at 1994, we had done a lot of sacrifices, not just the sacrifices of the 1994 negotiations, but there's a lot of sacrifices that people had made to arrive at 1994. So when you now are reminding people of the things that they would like to forget, or at least put in the past, by putting it in their face as something that you're proud of, almost like you have a sense of nostalgia. And this is something that actually came across in the arguments in court today, that you have people displaying this flag as a sense of nostalgia, as I miss the apartheid years, and this is why I'm flying this flag. It can't be allowed.
All right. The flag is the symbol of the apartheid government, right? The anthem of the apartheid government, Die Stem, I mean, the English version was the core, but everyone talks about destem. That's been incorporated into our national anthem, right? So, I mean, we sing that at rugby matches. We sing it at almost every matches. Our children learn it in school. What's the difference? Isn't it inconsistent to say on the one side, you are not allowed to have a gratuitous display, which I'm sure the judges will argue about later in other cases, of this flag, but because of what it is the symbol of. But the anthem of that is actually included in our anthem.
Well, I think it's important to understand where the flag comes from. And I think that is also something that South Africans have been exposed to with this case. That in fact, part of the flag, this flag was, the apartheid government trying to bring together elements of the oppressive past that excluded black people.
But so was
right?
destem.
But destem is part of a national anthem now that is inclusive of everybody else in South Africa. And you must remember that there were a lot of things that we did not throw away simply because partly in 1994 some of these things were seen as building blocks of a new nation. That is why you have a destem in the national anthem. That is why you have the Springboks, as referred to as the Springboks. So some of these elements referred to part of the past, but that did not oppress South Africans, or black South Africans did not look at and see as destructive in their core and offensive in their nature. And I think that is very important. Now, if you look at this particular flag, really you have to understand the kind of history that it caused. Many people, one of them is my colleague, who, when they see this flag, are reminded of stories of particular oppression where their parents were brutalized in front of them, dehumanized, and a lot of pain was inflicted. Now, if you continue to say this flag must be flown in their face, you're saying to them, stuff your reconciliation and stuff the kind of recovery you've gone through over the past 25 years. In fact, you know what, I'd like to take you back there. That's something we can't do. Now, what we need to do is find a way of saying, yes, the flag is not going to disappear because it still will exist from an academic perspective. It will still exist from an artistic perspective and other perspectives that are controlled and are going to be going to provide us with some sort of backdrop. But you can't use it as a tool to offend and to hurt other people. It is important to refer to the United Nations decision and declaration on this, that it was a crime against humanity, this apartheid system. And if therefore its core symbol, its core emoji is the flag, and it's flown in the democratic era, then you have to find ourselves a new argument to keep it alive.
I have to end it there, I'm afraid. Lozuko Koti is the spokesperson for the Nelson Mandela Foundation. In a couple of moments, you'll hear the other side of this argument. Afriforum's Ernst Roets will be in the studio for you.